Welcome to day 2 of Hypermotion Dubai. Anthony Foxx joining us. He's the Chief Policy Officer of Lyft and the former US Secretary of Transportation. Anthony, thanks for joining us today. You spoke about how will mobility solutions shape future cities. Cutting right to the chase, you said that transportation as an industry was slow to embrace change. Why do you think that is?
Well, it's just the infrastructure is super expensive. It's time consuming to plan. It's hard to figure out how one system integrates with another one. You know, one thing I say is that transportation doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. And, you know, the systems that we build in the future will be based largely on the infrastructure that's there today. So, yeah, slow to adopt new technologies, but we are at a place where the rapid pace of change is forcing us to integrate new technologies into the system. And it's just a question of how much, how fast, and how safe.
What do you think is key to accelerating that innovation adoption in the transportation industry? I mean, obviously, yes, technology is advancing at a rapid pace. Is the industry catching up to that change of pace?
I think industry is setting the pace. I think government is having trouble keeping up, and there's reasons for that. Again, we have a lot of incumbent transportation technology that we've had lots of experience regulating and so forth. And the future presents new challenges and new questions. You know, one example is in autonomous vehicles. How do you help regulate what a vehicle does in collision avoidance? When there's no choice but to hit something, how do you instruct the vehicle to behave in that situation? And there are some people who think that you need to have an ethicist as part of the thought process there. So there are new challenges that are being presented by technology.
Yeah, I guess that's the key thing about case mobility, isn't it? Connected, autonomous, shared, and electric mobility. It seems to me that probably missing that key point, and that's infrastructure and obviously regulations in order to implement case mobility. That's a key part of it, I guess.
Yeah, it is. It is. You know, you and I, if we come up with some cool idea for technology and transportation, we can do it. Like, you know, no government in the world is going to deprive you of the right to hurt yourself if you fail. But when you start to involve like other people using that technology, or even more charging for someone to use the technology, that's when government has a real need to say, okay, is this safe? Does it work? How do we manage the contours of this? And that's where we are.
What role do you think drones will play in the future of transportation?
Drones will be huge. I think drones are going to, they're really going to close a lot of gaps that we have today, particularly between urban and rural areas, and just in terms of access of basic things, whether it's medicine or retail goods or things like that. I think it's going to close a lot of gaps that currently exist.
You mentioned before, of course, COP26 came to a conclusion yesterday about climate change and tackling climate change. As someone who's been in the transportation sector for so long, what role do you think transportation will play in achieving a sustainable future?
Transportation's got to play a critical role in climate change reduction, and it's because mobile sources are becoming an increasingly large share of what's causing climate change to perpetuate. So cleaning up vehicles with higher fuel efficiency standards, transitioning to cleaner fuel inputs, whether it's electric or hydrogen or whatever it is, we're going to have to go there. And again, one of the things I talked about today was the trip not taken. You know, to what extent can we incentivize people to walk or bike? You know, every trip that's not taken on the roadways helps reduce congestion. It also helps protect the environment.
We're talking about technology. I mean, electric vehicles is of course one, but that's not just the be all and all, is it? There are other technologies that we can utilize for sustainable mobility, surely.
Yeah, that's the thing is, as a user of the system, I want to have as many choices as possible. So, you know, if I'm trying to go from here to the airport and there's only one way to go by car, guess what? I'll probably have thousands of my friends also trying to get to the same place. So I think we have to think in terms of, you know, being more mode neutral, having less chauvinism about particular types of transportation, and being much more open to a variety of possible ways people can get there. And that, of course, means government has to probably play a pretty strong role in helping to put the infrastructure in place for those choices to exist, even as it's trying to incentivize those inputs.
Yeah, and I guess the key part of it as well is making sure that it's accessible for all, because
right.
not everyone has the capital to be able to afford electric mobility or the latest technology in sustainability or mobility. So, how can we make sustainable mobility and for all populations, for everyone to get around?
Yeah, it's pretty incredible to think about what's happening in 2021. We have 2 or 3 examples of billionaires who have put billions and billions and billions of dollars in place to get to space. And yet we have millions and millions of people on Earth who can't get to a good grocery store, who can't get to a decent pharmacy, who can't get to a decent health care or what have you, or to a school or to a job. And so, if you're looking at the transportation system as a whole, you'd say, well, what can we do to use this technology that hits the most people, that gives the most people the most mobility? And again, I think so much of the time it starts top down, and I think governments have to start helping industry look at bottom-up solutions.
Anthony, of course, you were the mayor of Charlotte in 2009. At the time, it was a global financial crisis.
It was like ages ago.
It's a long time ago. But you're, of course, involved in the Blue Line project, the rail project of Charlotte. I know that was quite close to your heart. What was so particularly important to you about that? Why was so significant about that project?
Yeah, well, Charlotte at the time and continues to be one of the fastest growing cities in the United States, and a very car-dependent city. And while it had a bus transportation system, getting rail transit into the city was an entirely new thing. A lot of cities in the U.S., and I say around the globe as well, buses are seen as the poor people's transportation. And rail is seen more as a sort of middle class, maybe even a slightly upper class way of getting around. And my view of the city was that we needed to have a system that brought all of these communities together, and I thought rail was the right way to go. And I was glad to see us extend the light rail system to the University of North Carolina at Charlotte, but I was also equally happy to see us connect the lower income east and west sides by rail transit using a streetcar. So again, to me, transportation is all about interoperability from a very technical standpoint, but it's also about community in a larger sense. It's about people having those unintentional, spontaneous interactions with people who coming from a different place in life and having an opportunity to mix it up through our transportation system. I think that's one of the things we're lacking as a society. COVID has only made it worse, is the isolation we feel, the separation we feel from each other, the divisions that exist in the world. I think they come down when you have people who travel together, literally, to get from one place to another.
We're here at Hypermotion Dubai, of course, debut show here. And Dubai, I guess, has relatively new infrastructure, transport infrastructure compared to many other places in the world. What are your thoughts on Dubai as a kind of benchmark for future mobility? Do you think it could be a successful case study for the rest of the world to follow?
I think what's really cool about Dubai is the speed with which something goes from an idea to execution. It's very, very quick, and one can learn a lot coming to a place like Dubai about how certain modalities of transportation that are very futuristic, how they actually work in practice, how they can be integrated into an entirely different context. So in many ways, I think Dubai has created a bit of a petri dish for the world to see how different mobility solutions can work together, and it's an exciting place to be.
Anthony, thanks very much for your time, and enjoy the rest of your time in Dubai as well.
Thank you.